Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Kanga TV, home of North Melbourne fans, and it's time to wrap up all the last minute bits and pieces ahead of our clash against the Swans round 19 over at the SCG on Saturday late afternoon. We're going to talk teams, we're going to talk another debutant, and we're going to talk to Alex Donnelly from AFL today. We're going to start with Alex, and then we're going to roll into all the North Melbourne team news straight after that. Enjoy. Alex Donnelly, welcome to Kanga TV. It is such a pleasure to have you here, normally talking about footy as a whole, but I've let you put your Swans Nuffy cap on for the next 20 minutes, and we're going to preview all things round 19.
Sweet. I've actually got my Arsenal hat on because my Sydney hat's my gym hat and it's a bit smelly at the moment. And after a long day at work, I didn't want that. But if people are watching on YouTube, I am wearing the Isaac Heaney is an A-grader True Bloods t-shirt. Shout out to a certain member of the media who said he wasn't an A-grader at the start of the season. But yeah, getting to talk all things Swans, other than making Collingwood fans angry, it's probably my favourite thing to do.
Firstly, let's talk about the last time we met because I feel like while on field it's looking a little bit different heading into this game, I fear the results could be somewhat similar on Saturday afternoon. Yeah, Saturday afternoon. We played each other round four, I believe it was, under the roof at Marvel. The Swans were hampered with injury, and we put in a bit of a brave fight for probably the first quarter and a half, and then the Swans just took the game and ran with it. Flip the script now, and a few months later, North, plenty of injuries. We've now lost Tristan Xerri to suspension, while the Swans back at home in red hot form.
Yeah. Talking that game earlier in the season, the Swans had lost their first few. Obviously, they'd beaten Freo. It's like, oh, where are we? Obviously, Errol was injured. Logan McDonald and Hayden McLean. Like McDonald still hasn't played a game, but McLean was coming back in. Our back line was a bit all over the shop as well. But we saw the emergence of Riley Bice, who became the game's greatest superstar that evening at Marvel. I think he was probably going to get the three votes. He had 26 disposals, which I'm sure North fans enjoyed it. Another play just bursting onto the scene in front of their eyes. But yeah, it was a sort of, as a Swans fan watching that game, not once during that game was there sort of a concern for me. It was more in the second half where they really flicked the switch after half time. And this was inclusive of Chad Warner having a flu game. He sat in the goal square for about three quarters and then decided to sub himself, at which point Swans fans like, oh, is he leaving? This was pre-contract, so it was a stress. That was the biggest stressful part of the evening. Like, what is Chad doing? Does he want to leave? Um, but yeah, I thought it was a really good game. The thing is, the Swans fan in me that got really annoyed was North kicked two goals in the last quarter, and it was Nick Larkey getting. It felt like his only two touches of the evening, and just having him goalless, like as a Swans fan, obviously one of the best forwards in the competition, it would have been a real feather in Tommy McCartan and Lewis Melican's cap to do that. But it was one of those nights where back then we're like, all right, season's back on track. This is where the Swans start to really work into the season. Obviously, a lot's changed since then. I think North had come off, was it the win against the D's the week before? So it was a bit of a real come to Jesus meeting that night too.
Yeah, so we beat the D's in round two, and then we'd gone
Yeah,
over
okay.
and taken on Adelaide Oval the following week. And the Crows had two
Yeah,
massive wins to start the year. And I
yeah.
think they were like the informed team very, very early on. And credit to them because they've carried that throughout most of the season now. Um, but I think a lot of us were probably still riding the wave from round two and thought, oh, the Crows, they're so good. So to stick with them for 2.5 quarters and then to only go down by 6 goals at home, Adelaide Oval. We never won at Adelaide Oval. We thought, oh, okay, maybe that was just a bit of a blip. I think this game definitely, as a North fan, was a bit of a reality check on where we are sitting at that point in time. We then went on and had two more horrible losses in a row. And then after Good Friday, we sort of were able to turn things around. Heading into this game, I have got absolutely no confidence for so many reasons. I guess North actually don't match up against the Swans too badly when we play in Melbourne. And I think that probably is shared by any team that plays the Swans at Marvel. They seem to go in and probably with more confidence than they would when they play them anywhere else. I know St Kilda beat you at Marvel last year and got within a goal last week. This is completely different. The last time we played each other at the SCG was this time last year, and I'm pretty sure the Swans won by about 70 points. Um, Obviously, a different Swans outfit. You're not, on top of the ladder and flying at the moment, but you have hit some really good form in the past few weeks. How are you feeling about going into this one, given the last month for the Swans?
If you look at the last month for the Swans, and I got lucky, I was overseas on holiday when we got belted by Adelaide and Melbourne. So that was a good time for me. I was on the plane when we beat Port Adelaide. I got to watch the Joel Amati amazing disaster class on the way home. Watching your team win 40,000 feet in the air is not too bad, I'll tell you that much. But the last month, inclusive of that game, like we beat Richmond, obviously, before that. That was a bounce back win after, I think it was either the Melbourne loss or the Adelaide loss. Both of them came in sort of consecutive weeks.
Yeah.
And they've won four of the last five. They should have beaten the Dogs. I will say that they should have beaten the Dogs, and just it was some bad kicking in front of goal that cost the Swans games. And it's like this is great, Errol Goulden's back, Papley's back, Amadi's back. We had a lot of blokes out through suspension throughout the year as well, which is sort of something that's been understated. Is there's hardly been continuity with the team, and then we get it, and then Papley and Amadi get injured in the last couple of minutes a few weeks ago against Freo. So look, while I'm feeling pretty confident that given sort of how the last month has been for both teams, there is still that factor that, all of a sudden, with McKercher, Wardlaw, Shees, all of a sudden they're just like, we are going to be that really good midfield and get the job done. The issue is obviously for you guys, Nick Larkey seems like he's not going to play, and it seems sort of 50-50 about LDU. And no Xerri just means that Brodie Grundy might have a day out against is it going to be Teakle that's going to play? Like that's sort of going to be the biggest concern is the Swans are going to get a lot of the footy in their hands the first time.
Well, I think for us, I would go with CCJ, so Callum
Yep.
Coleman Jones. And I said this in my preview. 10, 11 weeks ago, I did a Q&A on the channel and I had put a line through CCJ's career. Couldn't get back on the park after an Achilles injury. He injured himself in Good Friday game last year. Just never really looked like he was going to come back. Wasn't even super impressive before that. But the past 10 to 12 weeks, he's been training really, really strongly and he's put up a couple of good performances in the VFL. So I'd actually expect he was on the extended interchange bench for the game against the D's last week. I'd expect him to be the one to come in. I think Ruck is his strongest position as well. So I'd like it to be him. But I think, and we'll talk about Brodie Grundy, but I think North probably needs to go in with the same mentality that most clubs would go in when they're tackling Tristan Xerri, having two genuine ruckmen, being able to take responsibility because all of our ruckmen are really inexperienced. We've been really lucky over the past decade and a half. We had Goldie holding down the fort basically on his own, barely got injured. And now X has sort of been able to do the same since he's kind of stepped into this, newfound form over the past 18 to 20 months. I would like to think that's the approach we take. I don't know who would be that second ruck. It won't be Jack Darling if Nick Larkey doesn't play, and that is to our benefit. And he had his best game for North with 3 goals over the weekend, and he was at full forward for 100% of the game time that he was on the ground. So I think that's something that I definitely would push for all the time. So whether it's Finbar, whether they use Will Dawson, I'm not sure, but I'd say in terms of our number one ruck on the day will be CCJ. Brodie Grundy is in some ripper form. You have called it as a smoky for the All Australian. Now that Tristan Xerri has been suspended, it kind of looks like he'll overtake him in the pecking order. And it kind of feels like Max Gawn is the only person standing in the way of Brodie Grundy and an All Australian blazer for 2025.
So, Bronte, it seems that as long as the Swans season has a pulse, he's going to keep on doing this. And the Swans, it's simple. They just need to keep winning games of footy. And you look at their run home and the teams that they're going to play. Grundy is going to have the advantage in every ruck battle. So this week, obviously, no Xerri. So it's immediately advantage him. Next week against the Giants, he's got Briggsy covered. He's been dominant in the ruck the last few times they've played the Giants. And I can't remember the order it is, but we've got Geelong, Brisbane, and West Coast in the last 3 weeks as well. Geelong, they don't have a ruckman. Like I could play ruck for them. Anyone plays ruck for them. It's anyone's pick who's going to play one day. Insert blonde dude with a headband. That's Geelong's ruckman. Then it's Big Oscar. He's injured, so who knows how he's going. He's doing his best Clark Keating impersonation at the moment. He's going to be Mr. September. And then West Coast in the last round. Grundy's immediately going to have an advantage there. So if he continues this body of work that he's put together over the last 10 weeks. And even before that, he had two poor games against GWS and Gold Coast. So this year, a bit poor. We still beat the Giants. But before that, he was really good against Collingwood and really good against Port. So it's not just David King saying, it's a good month. It's been a genuine good season since Gather Round, which was around 5 or 6. So
Yeah.
Gawn hasn't hit his level, but it's almost like you've got to knock Gawn out of the chair.
Yeah. I get that. And I think as a North supporter, I sit here and I think we all think our players and our clubs are hard done by. I really think that Tristan Xerri has been the premier ruckman of the competition, definitely last year and for majority of this year. And it kind of feels like he's got to put in so much extra work to have his name put in the frame. Now, obviously, he's going to miss 3 games. He had a patch of about 3 games earlier in the year where he was just absolutely woeful. I feel like the opportunity has definitely gone begging, but I just don't like that there's this automatic assumption that it's Max Gawn's to lose. When he isn't, I mean, it's no disrespect to Max. He's an incredible player and he has been such a great service for both the D's and this, this competition for so long now. I just don't like that in some specific areas or for some players, it's an automatic selection and then it's everybody else's job to try and knock them off the perch.
You have a look at the stats last time between Grundy and Cherry. It's a genuine 50-50. And I can't remember too much of the game other than Will Hayward and Riley Bice, but 23 hitouts for Cherry, 21 for Grundy, 20 disposals Grundy, 18 Cherry. Both gave away 3 free kicks, both got 4 free kicks, 7 clearances for Cherry, 6 for Grundy, and both of them had 2 inside 50. So it's like,
Like
yeah,
neck
good
and
job,
neck.
boys. Like, yeah, go
Yeah.
split a beer. Everyone's had a good time. That goes to show that's two of the genuine best ruckmen, like you'd say, Gawn and probably Jackson are the ones this season.
Yeah.
And Grundy absolutely destroyed Jackson and what was his name, Sean Darcy a few weeks ago as well. So the 3 week suspension you hear about, like you hear Corn sometimes talk about, I think they're going to play at least 16 games to be considered.
Mm.
So 3 games doesn't exclude Cherry, but it's almost like he's got to come back and be best on ground in those final couple of games to sort of have his name there. Because getting suspended late in the year is a killer. Because everyone forgets how good Grundy was at the start of last season. He just ran out of wind at about halfway through the year, which coincided with the Swans going downhill.
Talk to me about the hope that kills every single supporter when it comes to their football club. You can still mathematically make finals. You just have to keep winning. Do you think they're a chance? Like, do you genuinely think they're a chance?
Joel Amadi hadn't have gone down, yes. Because I know a lot of people find Joel a very divisive character, and there's a lot of forwards people look at, oh, he's no good, he's no good. What Joel Amadi brings to the team isn't just about goals. It's also about defensive pressure. He made 3 rundown holding the ball tackles against Fremantle. On the weekend, the Swans forwards was so stagnant. It was almost embarrassing being there watching the game. He creates space, and because he's so fast and agile, people are drawn to him, which then frees up other players to find space. Papley, of course, he's one of the best small forwards in the competition, but he's going to be back by the end of the year. But losing Amadi when McLean, I love McLean, but he sometimes just stands there and is like, yeah, put it on my head. Riley Thorthorpe's the same size of him and moves around like there's no tomorrow. And we don't have, obviously, Logan McDonald. Like Aaron Francis, God bless him. He tries his heart out. But you're not going to make finals with Aaron Francis as one of your forwards. I almost wouldn't mind if we went very small on the weekend and tried to lower our eyes and use our elite kicking skills just to pick the eyes out of this, because throughout watching North a bit this year, there's sometimes you can be caught a bit sort of lacking when it comes to transition in defense. And so sometimes I see Luke Parker out there and I'm just like, oh, Luke, I miss you sometimes. But it feels like if, Errol, Lizard, Braden Campbell, and a couple of others, Matty Roberts, get their game going, it could be just a lot of quick movement into the Swans forward line where maybe someone like, Will Hayward does have a day out. So I don't have hope about the finals. If we somehow keep winning and make it, yes, but I just think it's too much hard work to do. You can't lose to Essendon, you can't lose to Port Adelaide and expect to make finals.
Yeah, I get that. It's a really difficult one because I think for so long the expectation has been that you've always been around the mark and Sydney are this ever-threatening um, force, I guess, and you just kind of expect them to be in the mix every single season, which they kind of still are, like I said, technically. Um, I think that for us, the tall forwards that are missing for the Swans, we don't have any small defenders at the moment. Literally every single medium and small defender at North Melbourne is injured. We could not, I can't believe that we'd be missing Luke McDonald as much as we are at the moment. And it's crazy. I don't think most fans would have said that at the start of this year. He's had an incredible year. It's been his best year since his best and fairest year in 2020. Injured, so many of them on ice for the year. We played four tall defenders against the D's over the weekend in a game where it was meant to rain. So it just, that game was probably lost at selection. And I really hope that we look to make big changes in this game. I, like you, am a big fan of consistency and continuity in the 23 that play each week, especially from that patch from Good Friday until the second game against Carlton. We put together a really strong run of form. We only had one game, I think, that was decided by more than two goals. So to keep that core group together for as much as possible, it allowed them to just gel, better chemistry and synergy, especially moving the ball from one end of the ground to the other, because we are the slowest team in the competition to transition the ball. And so now, given the injuries and also given that the last three games have just not gone our way whatsoever, I think there is real grounds for us to make big changes. But like, who do we even bring in? Like, we've got to get a little bit creative. And I think that's one thing I really want to see from Clarko this week. I felt like at selection, and I know he doesn't do it alone, but at selection, he probably let us down with the team that played against the D's. And I would hope that he would find a way to rectify that before we take on the Swans, especially knowing that their biggest forwards and their most threatening forwards aren't playing. And it's the small guys who will be damaging.
And that'd be interesting. You mentioned how you're the slowest ball moving team in the competition. If you watched St Kilda last week, at sometimes they just flung the handball around like there was no tomorrow. And the Swans, it's been their issue all year. Defending really fast transition, they have struggled a little bit with. Having Callum Mills back, and obviously Errol does help a little bit. Hopefully Dane Rampy's back this week, which should make up for Tommy McCartan being out. But the Swans can be got at in transition. If a team just decides to throw caution to the wind, and this is the perfect chance because most logical fans are like, well, the Swans will just win this by 5 goals. Yep, sweet. It'll be 130 to 80. It'll be entertaining. It'll be fun. But the Swans were never losing. If North Melbourne decided to fling the footy around and just run and gun and just like, if we lose by 60, at least we've tried something different this week. It's a way to get at the Swans. St Kilda are not a fun team. They were fun on the weekend at times. And it was just like, hold on, what's going on here? But as the Swans fan, it's like, oh, our transition defense sucks. It's just if you can get numbers to the footy around some of these Swans mids at the moment, a few of them, not that they're struggling, some of the decision making is wrong, and that comes from having so many changes through that midfield and forward line throughout the year.
So what you're saying is bring back North Ball this weekend at the SCG.
If you have 400 possessions and 220 of them are handballs, you're probably going to go close to winning.
Great. Clarko, if you're
Small
watching.
ground, just run.
Clarko, if you're watching, there's the game plan sorted.
Also, don't tag Errol Gould. That's a terrible idea.
All right, how's this one gonna go? Just what's your gut tell? I know if we do XYZ, maybe we'll have a chance. If not, it's gonna be Sydney's day. What does your gut tell you? How's this one gonna go?
All sort of happens with LDU maybe being a fitness test and having a look at a couple of games that North can win in the next few weeks as well. Like, do you really risk him in a game that 95% of the time you won't win? Keep him off for another week. Obviously, a concussion, you don't want to mess with concussions. For the Swans, Chad Warner has a game where he's about to pop. It's going to click for him, and there's every chance it sort of happens this week as we build for the Giants next week. And Errol's been so good on the way back. It wouldn't shock me if he has 30-odd touches. I think this is a big day for Will Haywood. I think he'll kick 4 or 5. He just seems to pop up when we really need him. And all things being equal and all things going well for the Swans, I think they win this by about 50 points.
Yeah, my gut kind of says like, and it's so hard because I am the ever optimist when it comes to North, and I always would like to think that we actually are capable of really taking it up to these sides. But given our form over the past few weeks and given our inability to stay in games for long enough and knowing that the Swans are capable of generating a very big score in a very short amount of time, that too makes me really, really nervous. And given where our midfield is at, we are expecting like George Wardlaw to return, and I believe LDU, I know it's 50-50 reports today at the moment. The latest is that he will return. But Nick Larkey probably won't be there, and Xerri's not going to be there, and we don't have any, small lockdown defenders. I think it's going to be a really difficult one for us to just generate a winning score, to be honest. So I'd like to be optimistic. I'd like to think we're a chance, but realistically, I think I'd probably sit similar to you in thinking it's going to be a 9-10 goal loss.
Is the Swans do have a bozo quarter in them, and they have been doing it regularly for the last month as well. So it's just if North Melbourne can take advantage of that. Look at that second quarter on the weekend. St Kilda took advantage of it. The Swans had 15 minutes where they were terrible. The Saints kicked 4 goals. You can put 5 or 6 goals on and then put that scoreboard pressure on. That's what might sort of change the fortunes of the game.
Okay, well, hopefully we can find a way to capitalize on our opportunities on the scoreboard because we haven't been doing that either. So, Alex, thank you so, so much for joining me. If anyone wants to find you, where should they be looking?
Go check out AFL today. I'm not on the show at the moment. I am the content lead on that show, so go check it out. The boys break down every game every week. We talk about every team and give them all equal opportunity, so there's no Victorian bias or anything on this show. If you like horse racing, I do a show called Hold All Tickets. I'm on True Bloods now and then. I'll be doing a lot of AFLW stuff with Polly this year. I think my personal handles are Alex Donnelly 14. I talk rubbish about footy every day on there as well. So it's a bunch of fun at the moment. A lot of Collingwood fans are yelling at me because I said Nick Dacos was lazy last week. But, I mean, he let Noah Anderson run off on him. So there's the proof.
If you want a Collingwood hate watch or any positive Swans content in amongst all of it, I'll leave all of Alex's socials down below. I have been on AFL today as well. So great show. Can vouch for the boys. They're great. So definitely check them out as well. Alex, best of luck on the weekend. May the best team win. And I hope that team is North.
Sandwich bet on this, so he's hoping.
Thank you so, so much to Alex for joining me. AFL Today is such a great show for all things AFL, not just North. I was on the show earlier this year. They're such a great group of guys over there. I will leave all the links to AFL Today and to Alex's socials down below. I did mention just before that chat that we do have another debutant mid-season draftee. Zac Banch is going to be making his debut on Saturday afternoon at the SCG. He is one of 4 inclusions for this clash. LDU is back from concussion, which is so great. It's such a big boost for our midfield. And the Twin Towers, Brynn, Teakle and Callum Coleman Jones will also be making their return to the side. Making way for them is Finbar Maley, Tristan Xerri, of course, suspended, Bailey Scott and Robert Hansen Jr. This is probably the most intrigued and, dare I say, inspired probably for a while, probably for the last 3 or 4 games at the selection table. I feel like while the past 3 weeks have been in moments during these games, there has been signs of competitiveness and signs of dominance. We haven't been able to convert that onto the scoreboard, and obviously the opposition has just run away from us in all 3 of those games. I felt like last week we really missed an opportunity at selection. We went really tall down back, and I know we've still gone really tall down back, but I think the forward line could look a little more dynamic with the inclusion of Banch. Obviously, Cooper Harvey, he is a smaller forward, but he does play more of a lead-up role. So I think going with the dual ruck approach in the likes of both Teakle and Coleman Jones, I think is a good one. It's a really good way to tackle Brodie Grundy. As Alex mentioned, he is in some incredible form at the moment. I do feel like we may still be too tall down back given the tall forward stocks, or the lack of, I should say, tall forward stocks for the Swans. It also really depends on what the weather is going to do in Sydney over the weekend. There's just a lot of question marks around that back line. I do know that today at training, Charlie Comben did train a little bit forward. So whether they look to bring him forward for patches of the game, I definitely would not pull Will Dawson out of that back line. I think we need to give him some time to actually grow into some sort of role in defence. He hasn't really put a foot wrong in defence over the past couple of weeks. He did really struggle going forward when we needed him to go forward last weekend against the D's. And then late in that game against the Dogs, when Xerri was out of the game with suspected concussion, it was up to Will Dawson to take some time in the forward line and also in the ruck. And I just don't think that that really does him any justice, nor does it with us. So I feel like these selections, both in terms of bringing in a really nice, buzzy small forward. He does have that defensive element to him, Zac Banch, so he will be able to help Jacob Constanti and Paul Curtis in that role. But then Cooper Harvey offensively is really, really strong, so Banch could probably support him in that role as well. I like Robert Hansen Jr., and I do really think that he is an exciting, promising player when he does get his hands on the footy, but maybe he just isn't doing quite enough that we need him to do at the moment. But I do think that either him or Geordie Payne were really screaming for an opportunity to play, and I'm really glad we have pulled the trigger and brought one of them into the side. I still think the small forward department is lacking for North, and like I said, Cooper Harvey isn't that traditional small forward. So it's going to be an interesting battle. I'm particularly interested to see how Callum Coleman Jones goes. It's his first game at senior level for like 18 months or something like that. I think there is room for him still to grow. I think his ceiling is higher than Teakle's, but I did say not long ago I think it was the review against the D's, my biggest issue is a lot of these players in this side at the moment, we're keeping them in there and hanging on to promise of what they could be rather than what they're showing us on a week-to-week basis. So I really hope that he comes in and has an impact like we know that he can. The back line and the way that looks, like I mentioned just before, it's going to be quite intriguing to see how that one goes. I think Charlie Comben coming forward for a quarter would be awesome. We know what he did against Carlton last year, and I know that's just one quarter in his whole career, but just for a little bit of something different potentially. I just want to see us try different things, and that is what's made me most excited, I guess, about the lineup heading in this week. And I know a lot of it is forced changes. We don't really have a choice but to cover for Xerri appropriately. I guess my worry on the flip side is he really is our most important player, because we do base a lot of our game around centre clearance work and clearance work around the ground, and it's him giving our midfielders first use to the footy that often leads to success coming out of the midfield. But we do have our maestro LDU back in the middle. No George Wardlaw. It looks like he'll be making his return to the VFL, which means that Will Phillips will hopefully be playing his 50th game at AFL level for North Melbourne. I really hope that we can find a way to bring some good footy out of Will Phillips in the next sort of 5 to 6 weeks. There is an opportunity for him to stay in the side for the remainder of the season. He only played about 65% of game time against the D's over the weekend, and he still had a really big impact. So I think if we are patient with him, we persist with him, hopefully we can add a few more strings to his bow and bring out the best in Will Phillips and somehow save his future at North Melbourne. I don't know where that lies at the moment, but I do hope that we can find a role for him. We can find a way for him to stay on this side, and he can do it too. I think he's shown us time and time again that he does have what it takes to really add value to this side. So let's just hope the coaches see the same thing. It'll be great to see him running around there in his 50th game. I don't know if my opinion on the margin changes on the back of these inclusions. There are still some really big outs on the sidelines. Tristan Xerri just adds to that. LDU, like I mentioned, is a massive boost to return to the side, and I think Zac Banch is going to give absolutely everything he's got. Let's just hope that the rest of the side can lift with him and we have a pretty intense and exciting contest on our hands. How are you guys feeling ahead of Saturday's clash? Leave all of your thoughts in the comments down below. Who do you think needs to step up, and what do you think the margin is going to be? I want to hear everything from you down below, and also over on socials, Kanga TV show on Instagram, Facebook, X, and on email. I look forward to reviewing this one with you over the weekend. Hopefully it's a little bit more exciting and a little bit more upbeat than the past few games have gone. I feel like we spent all of our tickets during that Carlton game a few weeks ago at the MCG, and I really hope we can refine some of that magic and take it over to the Sydney Cricket Ground over the weekend. I hope you all enjoy the game. For those of you who are going, cheer extra loud, and we'll be catching up on all of the news post game here on the channel as always. Take care. I'll see you soon. Go Roos.